you say it on paper.
All right, welcome back to At the Round Table with Man. I'm your host, Larry Ellison. We're in studio today. Dr. Bradley is on a well-deserved vacation with the family, so he won't be in. He'll be back in a couple of weeks. We want to thank our sponsor, Guarantee Rate Mortgage Company. For all your mortgage needs, give branch manager Cora Holbrook a call at area code 781-342-0252. Guarantee Mortgage is located at 75 State Street in downtown Boston. Guarantee Rate Mortgage Company, guaranteed to exceed your expectations. Like I said, we're happy this morning to have in studio with us with our guest. And if you want to give her a call, the number here is 617-282-0685. 617-282-0685 is the number. At-large City Councilor Erin Murphy is in studio with us this morning, joining us here at the Round Table. I want to say a hearty good morning to her. And not only she's a counselor, but she's an educator. So that's one of the things I think people who are, it's an honorable profession. Tough getting people into it these days, but it's very difficult. So welcome, Councilor Murphy. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. We have a limited time with her this morning, so we're going to get right into it. You know, Councilor, you have probably a bird's eye view of what's been going on in the city. One of the things we were talking about in our 7 o'clock hour is the situation down at Mass and Cass. That situation has gotten worse. Absolutely. It is almost the gateway when you come into the city. And I know the city council has limited powers. I think people don't understand some city councils around the state are more powerful. Boston, I know there were some changes
with the policy.
Is there anything that the council can do? I know you're an at-large council.
I am at-large.
Right, so you're
in my district.
Right, you have the whole city.
I do, and it's something I've definitely been following and been a strong advocate for since 2014. I know Mass and Cass is usually very connected to when the bridge closed to Long Island, and a lot of the people and the services were moved to that area. And so that's been part of that conversation, but definitely have been down there. I go there a few times a week and really can say honestly that it is getting worse. It's not getting better. And we have to do something quickly, right? Because it's at a point now where our first responders are, being harmed. You already know that many of those down there, some are struggling, some are down there for illegal reasons. We know that crimes are happening down there. So for me, we have to really separate, help those who are ready and need help, but make sure that we're making that area safe. Because I recently filed one of the powers we do have. I filed a hearing order a couple weeks ago to give tax abatement, to give tax relief to a lot of the businesses down there who were just struggling. The McDonald's, all of them, all of those places down in the New Market bid area, they're spending millions of their own dollars on their own security, replacing windows, and they're really struggling to keep open. And I do think that we as a city need to step up and help the businesses too.
And I think what doesn't get enough attention is the public health crisis that it's causing down there. As some of our callers were saying, people are down there in there, they're using the bathroom in the public. So all of this is we do studies and we test the water for COVID, but I'm sure if you're testing the water coming from out of there, the sewage, that we're probably seeing a problem. And I think to compound that is what, because I think it ties in, is what we're seeing even in the South Bay Mall there with our young adolescents and the violence that is taking place over there. I've been over there and been on the receiving end recently as a law enforcement, being attacked by young people and just such anger. And this is, we've seen it in the schools. And I know you guys have put orders in to try to get metal detectors and things in the school. But that area down there right now is a magnet for all of the wrong reasons in there. And
and it should be a thriving business location for all the people who live around, myself included. I used to always go to that Target or run into the Marshalls and Home Depot, but people are avoiding it now for all the wrong reasons. And you mentioned too, I was an educator, like a Boston public school teacher.
No, you always were.
Always. I'm still an educator.
You're just not practicing right now, but yes. Thank you for that.
Proud mother of a BPS teacher now, so that was nice. I passed that off when I moved on to the council. But the school safety, right, and it carries over. If our children don't have great schools, that they're feeling that they're leaving with hope, right? I mean, you see it in law enforcement, and I think we definitely have to build those bonds back. I've gotten a lot of pushback in this idea that I think police belong in schools like, stormtroopers walking up and down, the last thing you want to do is set up shop in a school. But if needed, and you do want those relationships, and you want to make sure that the teachers, the principals, the students, the families know that you're there to support. In our community, policing is the best in the country, best in the world, I would argue. And every time I see Nora or Jimmy Chin and, our community engagement, and they're at the schools that do welcome them in, I see happy kids, like having real conversations and building relationships with our first responders. And that's important.
No, you're right. And to that point, I see, since there's kind of been this barrier from that happening, we've seen the results of that, where those relationships that used to be built aren't being built and unfostered. And we're seeing that because interacting with these kids, like we've been tasked with trying to go over to South Bay. For some reason, they thought we had a relationship with these kids, but like because we haven't been able to formulate that because we don't have access to them, when they knew us, that's helped.
Absolutely.
That brother, but now we're just another stranger to them when we do encounter them, and they just see us as law enforcement and not as someone who actually
wants to help.
Exactly, So that's another big issue, because I was telling earlier, this summer school session has been the busiest for us in law enforcement that I've seen in quite some time, and it's alarming. And it's
not being talked about.
It's not, that we're going into the school year with that type of aggression. What committees do you chair?
So I'm the chair of public health,
okay,
recovery, mental health, homelessness, but also veteran services, and the co-chair with Julia on education.
Okay,
and as an educator, do a lot of work and advocate for a lot of families, and teachers trust me and reach out to me. So I'm trying to build that relationship with the school, because a lot of times, unfortunately, city government ends up pushing back, I think, when you're trying to advocate. My job is to lift the voices of the residents and voice their concerns and try to help get things done for them.
So there was a lot of pushback recently when you and the other councilors not of color proposed having a safety plan and having metal detectors in the school. They have metal detectors at City Hall, right?
Yes.
They have metal detectors
every door you try to get in.
Right, and they have armed police officers in City Hall, right? The mayor has a security detail, and I'm not saying that she shouldn't, but so I'm saying is that we understand that safety is something that we need. We're seeing an alarming number of weapons in the school, not just guns, but knives and tasers that should not be in the school. It's a disruptor of the education. As an educator, if you have to spend time on behavior,
any minute spent not on teaching, and if it's on safety, absolutely we should spend and do more investment in social emotional wellness, and that making sure all teachers are trained to make sure kids feel welcome and safe and part of a community. But that's not the same as being safe. Weapons are a different level of unsafety in our schools, and we're seeing it. And the data shows that it's real, and I know people don't want to talk about it, but it's real, and it on your side that it's happening. So if we just pretend it doesn't happen, we're going to keep losing teachers, we're going to keep losing families. I mean, we're losing thousands of families every year, and the majority of the families we're losing are our black and brown families now. I mean, I know you said earlier a majority of our students are black and brown, so we can argue, numbers can be funny, but more and more of our black and brown families are making choices, either able to move out of the city if they can, they're choosing Medco, or they're going to our charter schools. Our charter schools are busting at the seams because they're an option that's safe and doing the job of educating our kids.
It's a more structured environment, which all of them should, It's not a lack of money. 617-282-0685, 617-282-0685. You're listening at the Round Table with Manlio. In studio, at-large City Councilor Erin Murphy is our guest here. We thank her for coming in this morning. If you have any questions for her, give us a call. So Councilor, one of the big things that has been a driving issue as well is, the budget for the city this year is over $4 billion.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Right. And
the schools take up 40%. Yeah,
exactly.
Our schools take up
so
a
we're
lot.
spending on average of someone say around $31,000 per student. The student population has declined.
We're at the highest spending per pupil in the country now.
Wow.
Because we're increasing our budget every year, even though we're losing students every year.
And also, the state has been overseeing, looking at, they have some involvement. They haven't taken over completely.
Right.
So
They're watching closely, though, yes.
Right. It's a fair assessment. Has there, you co-chair the education, has there been any improvements that we could talk about for that investment?
Not enough, right? When we see all of the women power that's put into our schools and the money that is spent, and kids can't wait. We can't wait a year, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years. I mean, generations we're losing every time another, group of high school kids aren't getting a quality education, another group of early childhood. I mean, there's definitely been strong investments and there's been wins. I'm not going to say that there haven't been, but I have to also be the adult in the room and willing to say, but we also, when over 90% of the students at Madison Park High are not reading on grade level.
Right, and
that matters, right?
It does.
When the majority of the students are administratively assigned because there's so many empty seats, we have more to do at Madison Park than just build a new building. We have to really change the structures there, and that's just one example. I'm not picking on Madison Park. No,
you're right. Because, but to that point, Madison Park has been, even prior to the state, was already in some form of receivership because it was underperforming. In most of the high schools that are not exams are pretty much in that same. Burke was in; they've come out of it. Brighton High, so you see this going on, because there's also been some flare up on the education piece, and I want to get this call, is that the moving of the O'Brien to West Roxbury High School,
I was against that.
And the other piece that people are upset about as well is that during the last election, they voted for an elected school committee,
and it didn't happen,
and it hasn't happened. What's your take on whether we an elected or this hybrid? I mean, the people have spoken. I have a
strong opinion on that. Most people I talk to, and as a mom of my kids are young adults now, but as a mom of kids in BPS, as a teacher for all those years there, most people I talk to are not happy with the school system. And when there was a question on the ballot to make a statement on whether or not you're happy with the way things are going, I think it was more of a mandate on we want something different because it's not working. Right. The only option that was given on that ballot question was, do you want to keep the elected school, or do you want to keep the appointed school committee or change it to an elected? Right. And so it overwhelmingly got a vote to change to an elected. I'm not convinced that that's the best choice. So I do think we need to kind of dig a little deeper. For me, I mean, I'm even willing to talk about just dismantling the entire school committee.
To that point, though, but I'm going to grab Boston is the only city that doesn't have an elected school committee. Right. I think that speaks volumes. Right. And we have probably some of the worst problems here, and then people feel like they're appointed by the mayor, that they work for the mayor and not
for the people, for the families.
Yeah, there's no.
I also think, though, that it's a buffer that people don't call the mayor out or the city councilors directly out when the schools are failing, because they can always say, well, that's the school committee, ask the superintendent. But I think if we had to answer like we do for Boston Police and other city departments directly, I think if the pressure was put back on the mayor and in the 5th floor of City Hall on both sides, that we would make more action would happen. All
right. Good morning, caller. You have a question for the call?
Good morning, Larry. How you doing?
Good. Good morning.
How you doing?
Good morning.
I'm good. I'm good. I got a question for Ms. Murphy.
Okay.
How do you want to keep, not only the students safe, but how you going to keep the staff safe? Because staff assaults in the schools is on the rise. So my question is to you, how do you want to keep good teachers from leaving and going to other professions in life?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I always make sure I include the entire community when I talk about school safety. Our kids, obviously, it is our number one job to keep our students safe, but we absolutely, as a city, and every principal needs the support to make sure that all of their staff feel safe, from the bus monitors to the cafeteria workers, custodians, classroom teachers, paras, everyone. And we need to have honest conversations about reporting. When something happens, I hear time and time again that they're discouraged or told not to report something. And we've seen, teachers, we know that parents and students have gone to the police directly, but teachers going to
and
or
also,
being reprimanded
right.
if they do share something that's scary, that they're feeling not safe.
And they're put in a difficult situation because by policy they're not, but by law, but they're mandated reporters,
Absolutely.
and they're running into a problem for themselves because the law trumps the policy, and that's what protects them. But reality is that they know there'll be some backlash for doing what they're required to do by law, and so there needs to be a little bit more protection.
And with a law enforcement, emotions get in the way, right, when it's kids.
Right, absolutely.
But at the end of the day, we're hurting the children too if they're being allowed or others are able to see that we're just attacking teachers, right? That can't happen.
I mean, I thought that there would be the catalyst when we had to shut down a K-8 school because of inappropriate sexual behavior, that would be outrageous to the point where we have to.
That just kind of died. No one really wanted to talk about the fact that kindergartners were being raped. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's shocking to me that those conversations, and when you try to bring it up, like people will push back and say, well, you're racist. Or no, I care that kids are safe. I care that teachers absolutely are safe.
But that's why it's important that people like myself who have fought that from my time as president of MAMLEO, as a law enforcement, when people are doing the right thing, you can't label them, because I say the same thing and they don't call me, if you're speaking about injustices, regardless, and that's what you're tasked with. You're an at-large counselor. Cliff, thank you for the call. I want to grab this other call because we got limited time with the counselor, but thank you. You're welcome. Good morning. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the round table.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I have a question for the counselor.
Okay.
And my question is, it falls under Michelle's mile. Will she work with Team Michael Thomas to get his People's Academy up and running, to give him the resources and tangibles necessary that he can help tackle the problem with Michelle's mile, so that way we won't have a lot of crime going on in the city? Because last time I checked, when people are productive, they contribute to society and making sure that they have a better life from themselves, but other people are wild them.
No, thank you for that. And this morning I saw a Trades Not Triggered t-shirt. So I thought about T. Michael and visited him last week over at the convention center with his beautiful artwork. And yesterday was at at Wentworth College with a group of summer students who were working also with Youth Build, which, we have to invest and not just talk about, but really invest in our workforce development. In in Boston, trades are such an amazing, wonderful.
And to that point, Councilor, Madison Park is a vocational school. A lot of everyone there is going on college. Why wouldn't something like the People's Academy, for folks don't know, it's a trade training program, to be implemented into
We're offering like community colleges, Roxbury Community, Bunker Hill, free June, community college tuition. We should also be investing in programs after high school, like the People's Academy and others, where it really gives people the trade, but also it's a network. To me, what I see, of course, the trade, the skill you have to learn, but that network and that group of people that are on your team now and supporting you and helping you through the process. We have a lot of things we offer in the city that aren't successful, and I find it's because there's no follow-through.
Right, because if you look in Boston, there's cranes, there's construction going on.
Everywhere.
And these folks are not making minimum wage. They're making a living wage and allowing them to be residents here financially,
and
right?
It's a safe, the safety, the union.
Exactly.
Benefits, health insurance, all of that is added. It's not just a good hourly wage. So it's important to continue to advocate, which I'll continue to do for that.
I appreciate it.
Especially when, I'll just say one last thing on that, but when there's a program already with a history of success, I think we have to definitely
and he's
look
been
at
doing
those
this out
more
of his own pocket. Thank you, Dick. I want to grab these other calls because, like I said, we only have limited time with the council this morning. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the roundtable.
Oh, is that me?
Yes, you. Get you, Jamal. Go ahead.
Please. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Councilor.
Good morning.
So I got two things for you. One is something that I've already sent to your office, and something that I just actually came up with recently. So, and I sent Larry a picture on your phone, if you wouldn't mind looking at that and perhaps showing it to the councilor or whatever. But in any event, so with all these new cannabis dispensaries, right?
Yep.
They now, the marijuana that they give out, much like potato chips, a little bit of chips in there and a big old container, right?
Yeah.
And now there are marijuana containers that are popping up all over the place. I sent a picture of
got
my own little
Yeah.
collection.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And of marijuana containers. Now, here's what I propose. And this is like, I miss Matt O'Malley, you know, because he was the big environmental guy, right? But I propose that each dispensary in the city of Boston is required to keep a recycling bin in their lobby where one can return these things. Now, I don't know the legality. Now, if you could get a 5-cent redemption on them like you could soda cans, because a lot of these are very heavy glass as well. Some of them are just regular plastic, but some are very heavy glass. I don't know if there could be some sort of financial incentive, a $5 deposit or something, returning them, but at the bare minimum, each dispensary should have a recycling bin in there. Yes, people could recycle them on their own, but as you know, they don't. So anything to encourage that, I think that should be looked at. What do you think?
Like an incentive. So I've never seen them before. So, but it reminds me, like years ago when my kids were little, like the baby food jars, and you wondered, what are you going to do with all of these? Sometimes people just store them for no reason, or they just get thrown in the regular trash and not recycled. So I really think that's an interesting idea that I'll look into about the recycling of them at the dispensaries. If there's some way we could have, I know we are expanding our, Green New Deal environment. We now have the compost green trash pickup, so maybe have something for those glass jars, and maybe we could include other types of jars like that if it's a
the
special
little green bins that people put like food in and leave on the
compost,
sidewalk.
Yep, that get picked up.
Oh, you know what I call those?
What do you call
I call
them?
those rat feeders.
Yeah, they are if you don't put the top on.
Well, the rats around here will open that top up or chew through it. Yeah,
I have rats near my house too.
Yeah,
They're smart and strong, unfortunately.
You say that movie.
Well, these Blue Hill Avenue rats, they gangster over here. So listen. And then the last point, which I've sent you about, and this is something that I really thought about. I used to work at City Council, and I think this will go a great way also to repairing some of this racial divisiveness that in many cases is unwarranted in my view. But the past councilors who had espoused some very, things that we now know today are not so good. Those being Jim Kelly and Dapper O'Neill. Jim Kelly, the bridge named after him in Southie, that's a more sticky wicket because Department of Transportation, that's a state-level thing. But the one thing that I believe is in the power of the city council and the mayor, and Council President Ed Flynn has been on this show and has already stated that he agrees with it, the Dapper O'Neill part of it. Can we get Room 801 to be denamed, call it something else, just call it a hearing room. But I think that we need to move past some of these historical figures like Dapper and O'Neill who were real racist, and not just racist, sexist, misogynist. They didn't like. I mean, there was nobody that they did like. So I think that we can move away from that. And I think particularly with some of the stuff you're going through, this would be a good time to do it. You and all the white councilors, we could all join together and sing in perfect harmony. What do you think?
Definitely think it's important that we do our homework and look back at history. Things, you find things out oftentimes later, and when you do, you have to adjust and make changes if necessary. So it's definitely something I'm in favor of. If we find that some of these past rooms, in City Hall that we do have power over changing or around the city don't deserve the name. I think names on buildings and rooms are very important. I'm always proud to say, the Richard J. Murphy, named after my grandfather. He was a great person, great community leader, and I'm proud to see his name on it. But if I knew names were put on other buildings, and I think it's also important, and I've done it with my students in the past, but it's very important for us to learn about these buildings and these names that we often drive by and don't even think about.
Exactly.
Like, who's Ionella? I'm in the Ionella chamber on Wednesday making really big decisions for this city and these generations coming, and different names. Faneuil Hall, Ionella, Nubian Square, all of these things are important. So definitely thank you for that.
Thanks, Jamal. Appreciate it because I know she's going to run.
Thank you. Have a great morning.
Okay, all right.
You
can call. So I know you had a few comments there, Pastor.
Yes, Patrick Wilson is saying, one, how are we investing in bridging the gap of 2 years of out of school for children in the region? How are we addressing the dirt bike and scooter mobs, the children attacking random people in public? He further goes on to say, and this was some comments that maybe that had to do with some other things that you said, but he said, how about setting a good example for our kids? I guess it was some conversation about in terms of harm reduction or whatever, and I think that's what he's referring to. He says, make, quote unquote, being the key word. If you can't make people wear masks, how can you make them not inject heroin or other things?
Good question.
Yeah.
The first one was the school.
Yes.
It breaks my heart. We definitely kept our students, I believe, in Boston longer, remote, and it's going to be generations. I mean, we're decades away, but we did get billions of dollars, right? The government sent money, and we have, separate than our opera funding, the school system has ESSER funds and still has hundreds of millions of dollars to spend on it. And on the council, I do take that very seriously, making sure that, one, we spend it in time because you'll lose it, but also that it is effectively directed to that loss.
Yeah.
We can't just, build new buildings or, put a new bathroom in. Like, those things are needed, but the school department, we said earlier, has such a big budget that when it comes to the loss, the learning loss for our students, and it's not just the little ones. What about those 11th, 12th graders? We maybe need to extend it to 20, 21, 22-year-olds also who left high school because they were at a time when maybe that really interfered with their future. So to make sure, it's like the People's Academy or other nonprofits out there that support after high school. If it's not a college path, how are we making sure that the kids on the other end? We talk a lot about the kindergarten end because now they're in first grade and they're not reading, or we have third graders who aren't on grade level. And that's fine because they'll be with us, right? And I get that we can kind of wrap our brain around how do we make sure they don't leave us at the end. But just checking a box that they graduated.
Right.
I will say there was a newspaper article with the past superintendent and principals of high schools with awards because they had the highest level of high school graduation. But it was during COVID when not every single, but many of the hurdles, many of the requirements to graduate high school were waived because of COVID.
Right.
So, of course, the numbers of high school graduates went up because we lowered the standards.
Right, and that doesn't help. Well, Councilor,
So
I know
they didn't graduate with the skills they need to be successful. So we can't just pat ourselves on the back for a newspaper. We have to make sure we follow through and look at the data.
Okay, I know you gave us a commitment there, so I want to be respectful of your time, and I know the calls will. We'll take those calls after we get the council. But I wanted to give you a minute or two to just let folks know if there's anything you want to express out there, or how they can reach your council, your office and your campaign.
She said, I'm Erin Murphy, at-large city councilor. I'll be running for re-election this fall. There's 8 of us for at-large, so we do not have a primary, so we will not be on the ballot in September. But come November 7th, would really appreciate everyone to go to my website. If you don't already know me and follow me on social media, it's Erin for Boston. Also, on there or on the website, you can register for our newsletter. We send out a lot of press releases in our newsletter to keep people up to date on what we're doing, not just out in the communities, but at City Hall, the policies that we're pushing and the work we're doing there. My website is Erin for Boston, ERINFOR Boston .com. My website is erinforboston.com, but you can always email at erinforboston@gmail.com or call me at City Hall, 617-635-3115. You can find us anywhere. Myself, my team, we're out in the neighborhood, the community. We have a wonderful, busy weekend. We'll all be around.
Okay. No, I know Lisa Searcy is one of your greatest advocates out there. She's out there.
I think she's already been to 2 events this morning, so I'll be seeing her a little bit later.
Well, at-large City Councilor Erin Murphy, thank you for your time this morning. We definitely have to give you back, as you can clearly see there's an interest in what the council is doing, and I know the President Flynn was in here, so it's important to connect with folks, and I know you and I connect on a regular basis, and want to continue to do that. And thank you for the work that you do. Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you for all you do.
You're welcome. At-large City Councilor Erin Murphy, folks. We're going to take a quick break and